Critical thinking. This is what Landis students had to say.
Critical thinking. Using your brain. Critical thinking. Asking questions. Lots of answers.
I think the definition of critical thinking is when you have to think outside the box and go beyond what you're
and explain a little bit more about it and just do like quite a bit more research than just giving a plain Jane answer solution
and going outside of what you expected to and go a little more in-depth thinking than a normal person or mediocre thinking would be.
Figure out how to make like a big base on our boats, and like that would be sturdy enough to hold it all together. And so we had to search we had to find materials that would work, and so we used popsicle sticks because they're pretty sturdy and they could hold the weights that we used pretty good, and so they wouldn't fall off when we did the test. And so that used critical thinking because you had to choose which materials to use that would be the best, and so it wouldn't be flimsy. And then we also had to figure out how we're gonna keep the boat in one structure so it wouldn't fall apart. So we had to decide what we're gonna use to keep it together, glue, tape, or just hot glue and all that. So we decided hot glue would be the best because it's pretty strong and it's easy to use, and so it works really good.
Yeah, and you can also use it to seal holes and seal cracks so your boat doesn't sink and go in the water.
We used critical thinking in analyzing the artifacts, researching what kind of artifacts they were, and predicting what kind of artifacts they were.
We also had to use critical thinking when we were digging in the dirt. Normally, we had to think about if we're gonna horizontally dig or vertically dig. And with stuff from way back when, since it's so old, it's fragile, and so if you're digging just vertically and you're just shoving your shovel in there, you're gonna break it. But if you think about it and use your critical thinking, go think about going sideways, it's a lot easier. And then you can also detect the different layers of soil and know what everything is. The artifacts that we did find, to prove that they were real, we really had to use critical thinking because if you just look at them, it may look real, but if you go more in depth and research on the internet and search compare the one on the internet and the one that you found in the dig site, then you can compare and see if it's how different it is.
Use critical thinking in everyday life, figuring out what kind of car to buy or what school we might go to next year.
The evolution of websites. So as you know, all websites are good, but some of them are not good actually. So you have to use your critical thinking for it. So before you use the website, see two different websites and see which one is good. If the author name is given there, you can search the author name, and you can search it's a good website, and you can done with in your project. You can use it for your project and everything else, for in your home. So in the school, the internet is useful for the projects and for other things. So as again I said that before you use any website, judge the website and use the critical thinking.
I think critical thinking is how when we were doing our moon rovers, how we had to design our moon rovers from pretty much nothing, and just a little drawing is all we had to work from.
Critical thinking is pretty much thinking about the whole thing that you were working on. If I'm doing wiring, I need to think about it. Where should I wire it? And should I wire with the batteries? Where am I gonna fit the battery? Where are we gonna fit the motor so it works? And pretty much you need to think about the design, the weight of it.
Yeah, do testing and keep track of our testing, and then I had to take the tests that we recorded and put them into our PowerPoint, how mine showed the building and the sequence of building our.
So when we test the car outside, it worked. We need to use critical thinking how to make it turn betterly, so it don't fall off, like it won't flip.
The most important thing was how we had to design, build, analyze, and record the full sequence of our building, which all use critical thinking in each sequence in their own different ways, and different responsibilities were taken for each sequence. Like Samir was the building, Linus was the recording, Stephen was the supervisor, and I was the PowerPoint maker. So we all kind of had our own little job, and some people did what they were supposed to, and then some people really didn't pull their weight, but it still all came together in the end using pretty good critical thinking.
Penthouse questions use critical thinking. There are basement questions that only have one answer. Main four questions is when you have more than one answer. For example, compare Leonardo da Vinci and Michelangelo. Penthouse questions is where there is a two-part question. It makes you go in depth and explain. For example, how would you feel if you were in the Crusades and why? We use critical thinking in ELA by creating co-instructing criteria for descriptive writing.
Project-based learning uses critical thinking.
Because it breaks down your thinking process into so many different steps, so you can analyze what you're doing and why you're doing it.
And it provides justification for all our conclusions.
We use critical thinking in our Socratic seminars. By that, we did, for example, the leader of the group, they would ask questions to the peers in the group of questions of, how would you feel if you were in this time zone? Like, for example, the Renaissance. How would you feel if you were an artist back then? How would you feel? Then you would listen to their answer, and you would, maybe if you wanted to, you could collaborate back to them and maybe start sort of a show-off where you could be saying, we could do, what about this? And then let them explain how you would feel. How would you deal if you were the only one there?
I'm talking about critical thinking, how it makes you think outside of school. So critical thinking prepares us for life outside of school. It teaches us how to think, how to ask good questions, and how often in life there are more than one answer.
Critical thinking is making connections. Woohoo!